All right, so the next method that we're going to use in order to solve a system is called elimination. It's called elimination for a reason because you're actually going to be eliminating either the x variable or the y variable for both equations. This allows you to solve for one variable at a time, and then once you solve for one, you can use that value in order to solve for the other. So, 5 simple steps. All right, so the first step is going to be read the problem and define the variable. So that means that you're going to tell me what x is and tell me what y is. So you're giving the x variable a definition and giving the y variable a definition. So the next step is you're going to write your two equations. So sometimes it's going to be in a word format, sometimes it won't. But if it is in a word format, you're going to need to write your two equations. Make the coefficients match, so the numbers in front of the variables. So if I have 2x plus 3y equals 6, and I have 4x minus 5y equals 8, I'm going to be looking at these two coefficients because I can easily turn this 2 into a 4 by multiplying the whole thing by 2. So you're going to figure out which variable is the best one to make the coefficients match. Now, by doing that, you're going to eliminate that x variable or your y variable, adding or subtracting. And then you're going to solve for the remaining variable. Now, once you solve for that remaining variable, you can use it and plug it back into the original. Now, the other thing that you need to know is elimination is best. So elimination is best when your problem is in standard form. All right, so remember standard form is ax plus by equals c. So when I'm looking at this example, I can see that they're both in standard form. So we are definitely going to be using elimination for this problem because remember standard form is going to be ax squared, not ax squared, ax plus by equals c. And elimination is always best when it's in standard form. So you're going to look at your pieces and you're going to look and see how they line up. So if I have my x's and then I have my y's. So when I'm looking at those two, I need to first look at my coefficients. Remember the coefficient is the number that's in front. So that would be your a or your b value. And when I'm looking at those, I need to decide, first of all, are they the same? And if they're not the same, which one can I easily turn into the other? So when I look at my x's, I have 8 and I have 6. So 8 and 6, we can turn 8 and 6 into each other, but we'd have to multiply both of them. And so that would essentially be more work. It's not impossible, but let's check the y's out. So when I look at my y's, I have 14 and I have 7. So 14 and 7 are going to be much easier to take 7 and turn that into 14. So how would we turn 7 into 14? So to turn 7 into 14, we would take the entire second equation and we would multiply that equation by 2. Again, we're multiplying it by 2 because we want to turn 7 into 14. So once we do that, the top equation is not going to change. So that's going to stay the same. But we're going to distribute here. So we're going to multiply. So we have the 2 times the negative 6. That's going to give me negative 12x. Then we have 2 times the negative 7. So that's going to be minus 14y. And then the 2 times the negative 10. So that's going to be minus 20. Now, at this point, we want to eliminate, which is the reason it's called elimination, the y values because my y values have that same coefficient. Okay, so the question is do I need to add or subtract? Okay, so add or subtract. So if I add 14 plus negative 14, that's going to give me 0. If I subtract 14 minus negative 14, that's going to give me 28. And we don't want to get 28. We want to eliminate. So in this situation, we are definitely going to add because we want to make it eliminate and equal 0. So right here, we're going to add this example. And we're going to add each column. So 8 our 8 plus negative 12 is going to give me negative 4x. 14 plus negative 14, that's going to eliminate, that's 0, equals 4 plus negative 20, which is going to be negative 16. All right, so at this point I can now solve for x. Okay, so we've eliminated the y, and the reason we eliminated for y is because we wanted to get y by itself, or excuse me, x by itself. So now to solve for x, we're going to divide by negative 4, and x is now going to equal positive 4. So we have that x value, which is half of the answer, because remember our final answer needs to be an actual point. So our solution needs to be an xy point. So when we're done, our solution for this particular problem, we started out with 4, now we need to find the y. So how are we going to find the y? So now we're going to substitute x back into our problem. Okay, so x equals 4. All right, so it doesn't matter which problem or which equation you substitute back in for, because you will essentially get the same y value, which is the reason it's a system, because they should have the same x and the same y. So I'm going to substitute it back into the first one. And I'm going to do 8. And where x is, I'm going to put a placeholder, because we have x equals 4 plus 14y equals 4. And in that placeholder, I'm going to put in 4. And so 8 times 4 is going to give me 32 plus 14 equals 4. And we're going to solve this equation. And we're going to solve this equation for y. Okay. So I'm going to subtract 32. So 14y is now going to equal negative 28. Divide by 14. And y equals negative 2. So my solution for this problem is 4, negative 2. Okay. All right, so one more example. So this problem, I'm going to look at my x's and I'm going to look at my y's. So here's my x's, here's my y's. Now with my x's and y's, my 3, I can't turn the 3 into a 5 or 5 into a 3, and I can't turn the 2 into a 5 or 5 into a 2. So we're actually going to have to multiply twice here. So whichever variable you pick, either one will work. You just got to make sure you follow the mathematical process correctly. Either one you pick will essentially work. So I'm actually going to pick my x's is the one that I'm going to lead with here. So this is the one that I'm going to do. So in order to set that up, I need to take my bottom equation and multiply it by 3, because the other one had 3x. And I'm going to take my top equation and multiply it by 5. And the reason I want to do that is because 3 and 5, the least common number that I can make from both of those is 15. So if I have 3, I'll multiply it by 5. If I have 5, I'll multiply it by 3. So when I simplify this, I get 15x minus 10y, because I'm going to distribute and multiply the whole thing, times 10. So we're going to multiply here. We're going to do it for the second equation. So 3 times 15 or 3 times 5 is going to give me 15. 3 times negative 5y is going to give me negative 15y, and that's going to equal 30. All right, so again, we decided to eliminate x's, so we've got to make the decision. Do we need to add or subtract? Okay, so we want to make sure we eliminate that x variable because that's the one we chose. So if I add 15 and 15, that's going to give me 30, which is not going to eliminate. If I subtract 15 minus 15, that's going to give me 0. So I definitely am going to want to subtract here so that I get that elimination. So I'm going to highlight the whole bottom equation, and I'm going to subtract that. So column 1, 15 minus 15, that equals 0. So we're going to cancel that out. So then we have negative 10 minus negative 15. So that's going to give me positive 5y. 10 minus 30 is going to give me negative 20. Divide by 5. And y equals negative 4. So again, we're starting with our solution here. Remember, we're going to have to find both of them. But we have the y value this time, so this is going to be negative 4. All right, and you can pick any of the original equations to plug it back into. Again, it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to pick the first one. So I have 3x, excuse me, that should be minus 2y, but instead of y, I'm going to put a placeholder equals 2. And in that placeholder, I'm going to put in negative 4. So we're going to do 3x, negative 2 times negative 4 is going to give me plus 8 equals 2. So then we're going to solve for x now. All right, so I have 3x. We're going to subtract that 8. And in subtracting 8, that's going to give me negative 6. Divide by 3. And x equals negative 2. The most important thing with word problems is most of the time you're going to have to write your own equations. So we're still going to use those same 5 steps that you learned. The only difference is when you're reading your problem, defining your variables is going to be very important. So I listed these steps out for you as a reference. So we're going to start that process, and we're just going to do a basic one first. So I have this system of equations. They're both in standard form, so we know elimination is going to be the best method here. And it asks us to solve for the value of y. Now, looking at this problem, if they want us to solve for y, then that means we need to eliminate x. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to eliminate x. That's just going to reduce the amount of work that I have to plug back in. Okay, so in looking at this example, I can see that if I want to eliminate x, then I have a 4 and a 5. Okay, 4 and 5, obviously I can't turn a 4 into a 5 and a 5 into a 4, but what I can do is I can turn each of these into 20. So I can multiply the top equation by 5, because 5 times 4 is going to give me 20, and multiply the bottom equation by 4, and again 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm going to distribute. So after I've set that up, I'm going to distribute my values out. So once I distribute, that's going to give me 20x plus 25y. And then I've got 5 times 30, or excuse me, 5 times 34 is going to give me 170. So second equation is going to be 20x minus 40y. And then we have 4 times negative 120, and that's going to give me negative 480. All right, so at this point, I now have the same coefficient. So I need to determine, do I need to add or am I going to subtract? So remember, in order to add or subtract, you have to determine which one's going to eliminate that value. So if I add 20x and 20x, that's going to give me 40x, and we don't want that to happen. If I subtract 20x and 20x, then that's going to give me 0, which is what I want to happen. So we're going to subtract this entire equation. Okay. All right, so we have 20x. So right here, we have 20x minus 20x, and that's going to give us 0, so we're going to cancel that out. All right, so then we have 25y minus negative 40y. So minus negative 40 is actually going to change this problem into positive 40. Okay, so minus a negative is going to change that to positive 40. So now I have 65y. All right, and now we are going to do 170 minus negative 140. So minus negative 140, again, is going to change this to plus. And I have 170 plus 480, and that's going to give me 650. So we have solved for y here. And we're going to finish that by dividing by 65. So you should get that y is equal to 10. All right, so if I look back, I can see that the answer here is C. Now, how can I verify this? Well, I can verify by plugging it into Desmos, and I can plug the equations exactly like I see them. And we're going to have to adjust your screen a little bit. And I see that I get the solution, negative 4 and 10. Well, it asked me to solve for y, and again, my y value is 10. Okay, so just a quick review there. All right, so we're actually going to go to our next example, which is the beginning of a word problem. And it's telling me that Michael has a jar of dimes and nickels. There are 152 dimes and nickels in the jar, so basically 152 coins, and a total of $11. If D represents the number of dimes and N represents the number of nickels, then which is the system? So they've already actually told us what our values represent. So they told us that D represents dimes and N represents nickels. Now the other thing that we have in this problem is they've talked about two categories. They've talked about the how many equation, so like how many coins, okay? And they've talked about the how much equation, so how much is each one worth. So we're going to be writing two equations to represent that. So when I look at these two equations, I'm going to start with the how much. The how many. So they told me that I have 152 dimes and nickels. So I don't know how many dimes and I don't know how many nickels, but I know that my dimes plus my nickels equals 152 total. Okay. So then it tells me that the jar was worth $11. That's the how much. Okay. So I have 152 total here and I have $11 is going to represent it here. Now, this is where you got to think and use your knowledge of money. So a dime is worth 10 cents. So a dime is represented by 0.10. So I have 0.10 D for dimes. And then my nickels are worth 5 cents. So nickels are going to be 0.05. So it's going to be 0.05 N. So there's my two equations that I would represent. So dimes plus nickels is going to be 152. So we're going to get rid of A and B because they mixed up their how much and their how many equation. So they did dimes plus nickels is $11, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted dimes plus nickels is going to give me 152 coins. All right, and then of course they mixed up the value for dimes and nickels for C and D. So we're going to say the correct answer here is D. All right, so the next one, it talks about there are 13 animals in the barn. Some are chickens and some are pigs. There are 40 legs in all. How many of each animal are there? So it's asking us to determine how many of each animal. So we have 13 animals in the barn. We have chickens and pigs. So let's go ahead and define our variables here. So let's say X is going to represent our chickens and Y is going to represent our pigs. How many chickens? How many pigs? Now, out of those two things, we're going to write two equations. The two equations that we're going to write are going to represent how many animals, and then the other equation that we're going to write is how many legs. Okay? So we're going to completely write two different equations here in reference to the number of animals and the number of legs. So it tells me there's 13 animals. So we're going to do x plus y equals 13. So the number of chickens plus the number of pigs is 13 total animals. Now, some are chickens. So chickens have 2 legs. So this is going to be 2x plus pigs have 4 legs. So this is going to be 4y. And it says that there are 40 legs in all. So that's going to be 40. Now, they want us to figure out how many of each animal are there. So we're going to solve for x and y. Now, when I look at this problem, I can see that at this point, because we're solving for both, it really doesn't matter which one we decide to solve for. They're both in standard form. So I'm gonna eliminate the x's just because that's the first one I came to. Now, I have a 1 and a 2. In order to turn this equation right here, I need to turn this 1x into a 2x. So the way to do that is we're going to multiply the whole equation by 2. All right, so when I do that, that's going to give me 2x plus 2y equals 13, and that is not going to equal 13. This is going to be 2x plus 2y equals 26. Don't forget to multiply like I just did. Make sure you multiply to the whole equation. And the second one we didn't mess with, so that we're just going to bring that one down. So you need to decide, do we add or subtract? So if we're eliminating the 2 x's, the only way to eliminate is to subtract. So we're going to do subtraction here. All right, so I have 2x minus 2y. That is going to eliminate, so that goes away. So then I have 2y minus 4y. Well, 2y minus 4y is going to give me negative 2y. And then 26 minus 40, that's going to give me negative 14. Now, I'm going to finish solving this by dividing by negative 2. So y equals 7. So y, we just determined, represents the number of pigs. So we now know that we have 7 pigs. Well, if we have 13 total animals, okay, so 13 total animals and 7 of them are pigs, then that means that my x has to be 6 chickens. Okay? And again, I could plug back in and also solve for the equation the same way. All right, so for this particular problem, it says a barbershop purchased 15 hairbrushes and 5 blow dryers for $2.15. The barbershop then purchased 5 more hairbrushes and 7 more blow dryers, and the company paid $189. How much does one blow dryer cost? So for this particular problem, we're solving for a blow dryer. Okay, so if we're solving for a blow dryer, we first need to define our variables. So again, it doesn't matter which one you decide to define it as, but I would use x and y. So x is going to be the hairbrushes, and y is going to be the blow dryers. Okay, so we're going to write two equations. We're going to write the equation for the first purchase, and we're going to write an equation for the second purchase. So I'll write purchase so we're not confused. All right, so our first purchase was 15 hairbrushes, so 15x plus 5 blow dryers, 5y, was $2.15. Then I have the second purchase. They purchased 5 hairbrushes and 7 blow dryers for $189. Now, they want us to solve for blow dryers. So if we're solving for blow dryers, that means that we're solving for y. So if we're solving for y, then we want to eliminate x. So we want to eliminate x in this problem because we're solving for the y variable. So the question is can I turn 15 into 5 or 5 into 15? And the answer to that is I can turn 5 into 15. And I'm going to turn 5 into 15 by multiplying by 3. Okay? So this is going to be, let me change colors back. This is going to be 15x plus 5y equals 215. Then if I multiply here, this is going to be 15x plus 21y, and 3 times 189 is going to give me 567. So now we do have matching coefficients. And since we have matching coefficients, you need to decide whether to add or subtract. And subtraction is going to be our way to eliminate here. So I'm going to subtract this entire problem. All right, so 15, so right here we have 15x minus 15x. That's going to cancel because that's going to be eliminated, which is what we wanted. So now we have 5 minus 21. So 5y minus 21. So that's going to give me negative 16. So if I do 215 minus 567, that's going to give me negative 352. And I'm going to divide by negative 16. And I should get that y is positive 22. So y is what we're solving for, so C is the answer. Now, I can check myself in Desmos, just like we've done previously. I can put in my original equations. That is the reason I ask you to use x and y, because you can check yourself if you have Desmos available. I know there is a few assignments where you have to show your work, but you can always check yourself in Desmos to make sure it's the correct answer. And you get the point, 7 and 22. But as long as you know that y represents blow dryers, then you know that that's the correct answer. Also, I'm going to go back to the previous problem. We did not check this in Desmos, but you can do it the same way with the chicken and the pig. So I have x plus y equals negative 13. And then I have 2x plus 4y equals 40. And again, we got 6 and 7. And we were solving for both of them. So we need to find the number of pigs, number of chickens. So chickens is 6, pigs is 7. Okay. All right, so I'm actually going to make this the last problem. And with this last problem, I have a bookstore sells used books. We have paperback books that cost $1, and we have hardback books that cost $5. The store sold a total of 100 books and made $260. So when I'm looking at this problem, I'm going to define my variables. So I'm going to do, let's say X is going to be paperback. And then I have Y is going to be hardback. Okay. So we're going to write two equations. We're going to write the dollar equation, the how much equation, and we're going to write the how many equation. So my dollar amount is $260. So my paperbacks cost $1 for the paperback plus $5 for the hardback for a total of $260. Now the how many, they sold 100 books. So that's going to be X plus Y equals 100. Now they want us to solve for paperback. So if we're solving for paperback, we're solving for X. And if we're solving for X, then we want to eliminate Y. So we're going to eliminate Y here. So I'm going to rewrite these so that I have a little bit more room. So I have X, 1X plus 5Y equals 260. and I have x plus y equals 100. Now we decided that we need to eliminate y, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to multiply the second equation by 5. So when I rewrite that, that's going to give me 1x plus 5y equals 260. Then we're going to multiply right here. And when we multiply, we're going to get 5x plus 5y equals 500. So we're still going to eliminate the 5's, but we have to decide whether to add or subtract. And the way that that's going to happen here is we're going to subtract, because if we add them, we're going to get 10y. So if we add, we get 10y. If we subtract, we get 0, and that's the one we want. So I have 1x minus 5x. So if I have 1x minus 5x, that's going to give me negative 4x. So then I have 5y minus 5y. So 5y minus 5y, that's going to be eliminated. And then we have 120 minus 500. So 120 minus 500, that's going to give me negative 240. All right, so we're going to solve now. We're going to divide by negative 4. And I got that x is going to equal positive 60. All right, so the correct answer here should be C. Let's check that. Remember, we're solving for x, but we're going to put our equations in. So I have x plus y equals 100. And I have 1x plus 5y equals 260. All right, so we're going to find that intersection, and we got our answer is 60 and 40. And we were solving for x, which that is the correct answer.